Rabbit took deep, steady breaths, pressing his hands firmly against the trunk of a tree as he looked around. Everything was quiet, too quiet. There was no sound of people, no animals, not even the wind. It was as if the world had sunk into complete silence. Behind him was the city, a place once full of light and noise, now just a distant, fading memory. Zombies had taken over everywhere, destroying all. He was the only one left. Rabbit couldn't believe it. In this ruined world, everyone else was gone. The forest in front of him, with its tall trees and green leaves, wasn't frightening. It was like a silent refuge, a safe place that still breathed and felt alive even in these dark days. This was the place Rabbit had come to, hoping to escape the nightmare of the city, even if only for a few moments. But there was no one here, only himself. He was the lone survivor of this quiet world, and that loneliness weighed heavily on his heart. Rabbit slowly leaned against the tree trunk and closed his eyes. The bitter and chaotic memories of those days came rushing back. Days when the world was calm and full of life. Days filled with the laughter of friends and the warmth of the sun. But everything changed so quickly. The first time he heard the horrifying sound of zombies, he thought it was just a bad accident. But when the city fell one by one and his friends and family disappeared, he realized there was no turning back. Rabbit had witnessed how his loved ones were caught or lost, one after another. He had cried many nights in the dark, hearing the zombies getting closer and forced to hide. He had fled through fire and smoke, his heart full of pain and despair. Yet each time, a small spark of hope was alive inside him. Hope that maybe he could survive, maybe find peace again. Now, having reached this forest, he understood that perhaps the only thing left from all the pain and suffering was this loneliness and survival. He had lost everything: family, friends, home, even that peaceful, carefree life. Rabbit opened his eyes again. Now he had only one goal: to survive. Even if alone, even if the world was never the same. He sighed and looked into the distance. The memories of the past, though painful, had taught him much. He had always loved order and beauty, the kind he saw in modern cities: tall glass buildings, open bright spaces, architecture that gave a sense of calm. Amid all the ruins, he remembered how much he loved those simple, modern homes. Now that no one was left, no city remained to shelter him, a new thought took shape in his mind. The forest, with all its natural beauty, was a good place to live, but he needed a place that was not just a simple refuge, but a space to rebuild his body and soul. A place where he could be peaceful and still feel order and beauty. Rabbit decided to build something, not just a shelter, but a modern home. Simple, practical, and beautiful, a place where he could feel alive. Thinking about that house was like a light in the dark, a sign of hope and a new beginning. With enthusiasm, he started searching among the trees for a suitable spot, a place with enough light, close to water, and away from zombie paths. Rabbit knew building a house wouldn't be easy, but this new challenge gave his life fresh breath. He clenched his fists and said to himself, "Here, in this forest, will be my new home, the place where I will rebuild my life." As Rabbit began building, it was as if he was piecing together fragments of his past. Every strike on a tree trunk or branch reminded him of memories playing like a movie in his mind. The warm summer days when he sat with his family on the balcony, watching the blue sky. The endless nights filled with laughter with friends, moments he never thought were so fragile. Even the first time he tried to build a small wooden structure as a child, his hands scratched and wounded, but his eyes full of hope. Building this house was more than a shelter for Rabbit. It was a bridge between past and future, a place where he could breathe again and find peace. Whenever he felt tired, he reminded himself that this house was a symbol of his rebirth, a life rising from pain and loneliness. In these moments of solitude, even when his hands were scratched and his body ached from hard work, he felt alive. He could still build, still hope. And this house, here in the heart of the forest, was to be his new beginning, a start that maybe someday he wouldn't be alone anymore. Days passed one after another, and Rabbit faced himself more and more. When his hands were tired and wounded, his mind filled with memories long buried. Memories that now sparkled like tiny lights breaking through the darkness of his loneliness. He remembered how, as a child, when the world was simple and carefree, he played in the yard and imagined himself the hero of rescue stories. Those days, when he knew nothing of this horror, the world was full of promises and dreams. Now, that same inner child, grown up and carrying the heavy burden of loneliness, was building a home in the forest, hoping to get close again to those simple, carefree days. Sometimes, in the middle of work, exhausted, he would stop and look into the distance, where the sun slowly set and its soft light stretched the tree shadows longer. In those moments, he felt that this silence and loneliness was not an end, but the start of something new. Rabbit had understood that life, like building a house, is full of hardships and pain, but never without hope and effort. And maybe it was this effort that taught him the true meaning of being alive. He smiled at himself and at the house slowly taking shape. A place no longer just a shelter, but a symbol of resilience and life. A house holding his story within. The house was finished, simple and modern, but full of life and hope. Rabbit stood and looked at it. The clean lines, the large windows welcoming the sunset light gently inside. A cool breeze passed through the leaves, caressing the quiet forest. At that moment, everything felt right. The peace he had sought for years was here. In this house he built himself, deep in this endless forest. Rabbit took a deep breath and smiled. As if for the first time in a long while, he truly felt alive. But just then, a soft, indistinct whisper came from the trees, a sound like a fleeting breeze rustling through the forest silence. He turned his head, eyes fixed on the darkness of the woods, but saw only calm shadows. Yet that soft whisper slowly grew into a sound that sent shivers down Rabbit's spine. A heavy, slow breathing coming from among the branches. His heart pounded, and he turned toward the source of the sound. Nothing was visible, but he felt that something alive and invisible, was right there in the darkness, waiting for him. His hands were cold, but his feet moved involuntarily toward the forest. With every step he took, the breathing grew louder and closer.